the word of mouth and referral part of that is really what I wanted to focus on with, other online and other, maybe mailing or setting up some literature in an office somewhere. Could be less of it, but what I've had the most success with is really just making sure that I'm doing what I'm saying I'm going to do, treating people right, and usually that'll lead to more inspections.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Unbiased Truth Podcast, episode 8, I think. Are we on episode 8?
Yep, we are on episode
8. And today I am joined by Logan Melton of KBM Home Inspections. And as always, the episode is sponsored by 360 Home Inspections. So lot of people may be wondering why I have another home inspector on the podcast. But at the end of the day, I always say that I'm only in competition with myself. I don't believe in worrying about what other people do in that aspect. I don't view other companies as competition. And at the end of the day, I think the industry suffers. The home inspection industry specifically suffers because there's too many people that view things as competition and they want to cut each other down versus collaborate and build each other up. But, there's a lot that can be said for just being able to bring the industry up together because of having good home inspectors. And with that being said, me rambling, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, and I'm looking forward to going through everything and talking with whoever's watching.
That's right.
About what we do. It's fun. I'm enjoying it, and I've loved every minute of it since I've started. So
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. So ultimately, I wanted to get you on because you started with the company. I'm assuming you correct me at any time if I get the timeline wrong. But you worked for somebody else, and then at some point you decided you wanted to do this on your own, which is a path that a lot of people take. Yep. I started off on my own. I had no intentions of hiring anybody or having a business other than me. And then, here we are. Right. So I got guys that I'm very well aware that someday they may want to go work on their own, and whatnot. So, I think it's cool to get other inspectors on here. Primarily, we talk to a lot of realtors. We've talked, bring in some of the tradespeople, HVAC, things like that. Anybody that I think is interesting and whatnot. But having another,
appreciate that.
but definitely having another home inspector on is definitely interesting. So we can talk about all the things that realtors do that annoy us.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
And
let me get my list.
That's right. That's right. But so tell us how you started, man. Where were you, and then what made you get into home inspections? Just in general.
Yeah, sure. Around the 2014, 2015 mark, I was then dating my current wife, and hopefully my only wife. Sorry, honey. We were dating at the time, and her mom, who's in the real estate field, was in a networking group, and my old boss visited that group one day and said, "Hey, you know anybody who wants to be a home inspector?" And she thought about me, and at that point, I was doing maintenance at a country club, cutting the greens and tee boxes and fairways, and I thought it might be a nice little change of plan or change of scenery at least. Yeah. And I'll give it a shot. So I went on a ride along with them and just kind of saw what they did. Honestly, I thought I was gonna really, really think it's boring or I hate it or something like that. My father-in-law is a home inspector up in Fairfax, and he never came home and was always like, "Oh man, I had the most fun day at work today." Yeah. So I was like, "Man, I don't know if it's boring or tedious or what." But after day one, I fell in love with it. Every day is different. You get to work outside. You get to work with your hands. But when it's too hot, you do end up getting to go inside.
That's
in
right.
Air conditioning, which is nice. So it's a nice mix of inside, outside, working with your hands, working on the computer. Spent about 4 years with that company, and then a year off doing sales for foundation repair, and ended up September 1 of 2020 launching KBM, and haven't looked back since. So
nice. Yeah. It's man, anytime I do like new construction, because there's always other houses working and whatnot. It's hot and you're like, man, it's starting to sweat.
Yep.
Time to go inside. You look around, there's 3 other houses that have roofers on them. Yep. Like, yeah.
Yep. I have clients all the time that are like, "Oh man, you got to go up in that attic. I feel so bad for you." And I say, "No, you feel bad for the HVAC tech that's got to come up here after I call something out up here."
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
I'm only up there for half hour or something like that.
Yeah.
They're up there the whole afternoon. So
yeah.
It's a nice balance, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So what made you for me, I came from a different industry altogether. I didn't know anything about home inspections until my wife became a realtor, right. and then learned about the industry through that. And then when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grow up, I quickly realized. I say quickly, it took about 19 years to figure out that I didn't want to work for people anymore. Right. So I wanted to try work something on my own. And just kind of landed here, So, what made you go from working for someone to working for yourself?
I would say it was a combination of a couple of different things. First and most obvious is, I was half the time I was collecting payment. I was like, man, I could do this for myself. Why not give it a shot, kind of thing.
That's right. I don't want my guys don't listen to this.
No.
Good.
The second would be, like you said, I've always. I tried the college route. I wanted to be an attorney or something, be given an MBA or something like that, and quickly realized that college wasn't for me, and figured I'd get into a trade somewhere, and like I said, kind of stumbled into this, and figured it would be something that one day, my wife and I'd always talk about. One day we'll do the thing for ourselves, and when the pandemic hit, it was kind of an odd time to try to go in and do in-person, sales appointments at their kitchen table, and doing a lot of Zoom calls and trying to, talk them through options and stuff like that. And I got to the point where I was, kind of sick of having to, report every day to my manager via Zoom. And so I just, I was like, I want to be my own manager. The only boss I want to have is my wife,
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
I was like, let's take the dive and see what happens, If you never try, you'll never know. So
right,
that's kind of the mindset that we've had is, just why not? Let's just do it, And so
there's something to be said, man. I mean, I was kind of in the same boat, like you're just tired of, why don't we do this? And then just for everybody to say no. Right. No good reason, just no.
Exactly.
And so you kind of feel, your growth is stunted, wherever you are, and it doesn't matter what industry it is. Now it certainly comes with its own set of restrictions. There's a lot of freedom for working for yourself.
Absolutely.
So the phone is not one of them.
No. Definitely not.
But there is something to be said. When I clocked out of previous jobs, I go home and that job waited for me when I got back. I didn't get those phone calls. But now, I'm home every night. Sleep in my own bed every night.
That's right.
If I want to go to Busch Gardens on a Tuesday, we can go to Busch Gardens on a Tuesday.
You can do that. Let me check with the boss real quick.
That's right. Yeah. But there's definitely a lot of freedoms that come with it, and it's just a different set of challenges.
It is, and it's the cool thing about it, in my opinion, is at the end of the day, if something happens that's good, it's your fault. If something happened that's bad, it's your fault. So you really don't have anybody else to blame, and so it kind of forces you to instead of saying forget it, I'll do it tomorrow or next day. You got to do it now. You got to take care of it. You got to take care of your people and
like payroll.
Exactly.
I didn't feel like doing payroll yesterday.
You had to do it.
Felt like I had to.
Some people in here might want you to do that.
When it's just me, it's like whatever. It'll be a day late, but I can't do that now.
No.
But no, there's a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of like you said, it's trial and error. Some of the hardest lessons to learn are business lessons because some of the most expensive lessons to learn are business lessons. But at the end of the day, they're still my ideas and implementations.
Exactly.
It's what do I want to do? Well, I want to try this. I want to try that. And then if it works, great. If it doesn't, great. But it's at least I have the opportunity to try it.
Exactly.
And do it. So when you because this is a very fun industry that you can go to zero to hero and start your own business and literally go from being, an accountant to being in crawl spaces.
Right.
And
why would anybody want to do
right. Versus an apprenticeship, like a true apprenticeship,
right, sure.
And things like that, like electricians and plumbers and stuff do. And that, yes, that, in some ways has hurt the industry and the image of the industry, right. Depending on the person, right? so has people that's been an electrician for 20 years and want to be a home inspector. You know, there's
Come on, they can come on in if they want.
That's right. So you working for somebody else versus starting off on your own, you know, I just said, yeah, why not? I can figure this out. And start on my own. You had the opportunity for at least 4 years to really be grounded in your knowledge and your process and whatnot at the expense of somebody else. Right. So like if you screwed up, yeah, you probably got a phone call and a talking to, you know, but the mess was really cleaned up by the owner. Right. Not saying that ever happened. I'm just saying that's just the way it works.
I put my foot through a ceiling one time and, you know, I call him up and I'm like, you know, man, I tripped over a plumbing vent and put my foot through the ceiling, and he was like, I thought he was going to be all mad. Somebody finally did it. Somebody finally did it.
I've been seeing so many people do it on Facebook. It's finally happened.
I can't believe it actually happened. Just give him my name and number, and we'll get a drywall guy out there or something. Yeah. No, that was really the only time that happened. But to your point, you know, the process is, in my opinion, probably the most important part of the actual physical inspection of the home is nailing down a process, doing everything the same way every time, making sure that you have an order or a way that you do things that you can basically never forget. And the 4 years with that company was integral to me being able to nail that down. So, I actually have a guy who's in Tappahannock who reached out to me. He just retired. He's wanting a little side gig for retirement.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I got to be licensed now. I didn't know that. I need my ride-alongs. And I said, you know what? Come on. If you want to drive the hour and a half up here, then go ahead. Come on. And, you know, that's the same thing with the whole, you know, we're a team. You know, inspectors are. Got to look out for each other. And it's been fun to have him with me and kind of see what it's like to kind of start from scratch again, because that's basically what he's doing. And, you know, it was flattering that he reached out to me, and I said, yeah, why not? You know, as long as you don't talk too much and let me do what I do, and please don't talk to my customer.
Yeah, you'll get the first couple was pretty cool. You know, like, you know, someone helped me out, so I want to help them out. You know, you know, the 19th and 20th one, it's like, okay, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, don't mind helping for sure. But you know, at this point, I just pass it off to Gordon. That's the benefit of hiring an employee.
Right.
You know, I have a Gordon, so I'll just say, yeah, just call Gordon, and if he's got, he'll get you, get you hooked up.
She's taken care of right now.
Yeah, but it's definitely for those that don't know, we got to do 25 or 50 ride-alongs, depending on how many hours your coursework is, in order to become, or the journey to become licensed as a home inspector. So that's really the most challenging part. For most people, if you don't have an end, because not a lot of home inspectors, and it goes back to the beginning comments of you know, I don't look at other people as competition. It's, you know, but that's how a lot of the older school guys, for lack of better words, and they view it. You know, they don't like it. They don't want nothing to do with it. But it's you know, so it's hard to find somebody willing, and some people got to go. You know, I've seen people go from Richmond to Northern Virginia or Virginia Beach to do ride time. And, you know, I've always said, you know, come on, you know, it doesn't matter to me.
Exactly.
You know, you can see everything I do. I can teach you everything I do. You still got to implement how I do it.
Exactly.
But even if you do, you know, we're still going to eat.
Right.
You know, so
don't worry about that.
Yeah. There's a lot of business out there for a lot of people.
Plenty of it. Yep.
Yeah. So when you started on your own, you know, because you worked you said you were in sales.
Yeah, for about a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. It just didn't.
It was fun to help people, especially like when people really did need a product that I was selling. It was fun. I just, you know, I didn't have that, you know, the one sit hard close, you know, mindset. I was more of a, hey, let's talk through this, get through everything, and make sure what you're getting is what you want and what you need, and nothing more. And I finally came to a point where it was just too much driving, too much. I know we do a lot of driving, but it was too much driving, too much paperwork. It was just too much, and you know, I wasn't doing really what I wanted to do. I wasn't really getting much joy out of it. So it was good experience. I'd never been in a sales role before. And it was fun, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. I like showing up to somebody's house knowing that I've already sold them what they need.
Yeah.
I don't have to convince them of anything else. So that's kind of what led to the transition into doing it all for myself. So
how'd you find coming back into the industry now under your own name?
I didn't really see much of a difference in the process itself, the actual, inspecting, reporting, but I never really realized how hard and how many hours, my former employer had to put in to get his, I thought, hey, people remember me, they're going to know me. They used to, when I worked for him, they used to request me. They'll switch right over, but that turned out to be a little more difficult than I had anticipated. So, we spent a lot of time cold calling, trying to get into as many offices as we could, and really trying to push the comfort level of myself and my wife, and trying to make it so we do these things and not get nervous about them anymore. So that was probably the most challenging, I would say.
So random fact. I've not done a single cold call
really
since I've started a business. I've done emails.
Right.
I'll send out 50, 75, 100 emails. But I hate them. Yeah. I don't want to talk to people. I don't like people calling me.
Right.
And I don't like, I'm just, fortunately for Courtney, we haven't started doing cold calling yet as a company.
You said that was start up in August, right?
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's coming.
August.
It's definitely, was it like a 1% return or whatnot?
I was trying to track it, and it was just, I had more luck just randomly, like Facebook messaging somebody. They're more apt to respond, and
I mean, some of it is just getting those touches out there,
right?
For people that don't know you, haven't worked, so you get that first phone call. It's a cold call, whatever, and then they see you on Facebook, whatever, and
exactly.
that's, I remember him calling me, about the seventh time they seen you. Now it's, well, let me give him a try.
Let's give it a shot.
Yeah. Let's see if you'll wreck my deal or whatnot.
Or not.
So that's the cold calling is, good for you.
Thank you. I did have one guy call me back, and he was obviously an old school guy, and he was like, man, you're the first person that's cold called me in 10 years. And he was like, I'm, definitely going to call you and all this stuff. And I've never heard from him again. So I didn't really expect to, but I was flattered that he felt the need to at least say thank you.
Yeah. It's like I said, you don't realize how much work it takes to stay in front of somebody. Yeah. I've got a core group of agents that, I think it probably doesn't matter. They're always going to call me,
right.
Yep. So, and they're busy enough that where I see them, at least once a month, maybe a couple times a month and whatnot. And then we just start building that relationship. But for the most part, I mean, you can get an agent, do 2, 3, 4, and then they go quiet for 6 months because they don't have a deal or whatever. And then, the shiny new objects in front of them.
Exactly right.
Whoever was just last in their office or whatever,
yep.
and they're going to give them a try because that relationship's kind of gone cold.
Sure.
And a year's a long time to be out of it.
It is. Yeah. I mean,
it's not a long time, but when in terms of relationships and getting back in front of people and
it was just a start from the beginning. We'll call the people that we know or email them or message them or something. The people we know, and 4 out of 20 might say, yeah, sure, let's do it, and the other 16 won't. But that's 4 that we didn't have yesterday, and I tell people all the same thing. It's just let me get in front of you one time. Let me show you how I treat your client and my client, and I think you're probably going to call me back after that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's kind of how I treat the client inspector relationship very very intimately, I would say, just to the point where I'm want to make it clear that I'm there for them.
Yeah.
I'm representing them in that process. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was challenging, but fun, and every day was always different.
Yeah.
You never knew what was going to happen.
That's
You
right.
still don't know what's going to happen every day.
That's right. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. You know, I've never been big on the constant visiting of offices.
Right.
You know, probably should.
Sure.
You know, there's definitely a place for it. But that's kind of like a part of the marketing that we just haven't had to ramp up.
Right.
You know, we can. You know, we got the systems and the people being Courtney.
Right.
You know, she's people in place to be able to do it. You know, and of course, you know, I can do it and whatever, but yeah, it's getting in front of them. I've always same thing as you. You know, like I've seen so many agents call me after their client, you know, went on their way.
Yep.
and got their own home inspector, which is fine because that's how I've gotten in front of a lot of agents myself.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But you know, they said, yeah, they spent more time just hounding me than inspecting. And I've just never been that guy.
Sure.
You know, I think the actual time on site, well, that's the interview.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, you're either going to use me or you're not.
Right.
You know, you either like me for my process or you don't.
Right.
I don't need to keep giving you a business card and say, hey, let's go meet up for coffee, or you know, call me if your other guy's busy or whatever.
Spend 2 hours with him. We should be enough time to get your message across.
Exactly. You know, you like my software or you don't. You like how I write reports or you don't.
Exactly.
You like how we talk to clients or you don't.
Exactly.
You know, and you know, but at the end of the day, I'm just there to do an inspection, not market. You know, I mean, we're marketing, sure, because we're always marketing, but not that direct way.
Right.
You know, so it's always fun getting stories because this is a very isolated industry as well, where you don't really know what anybody else is doing.
Right.
You know, so your only gateway, you don't ever get feedback. You know, well, I don't know why they didn't call me back. Yeah, so so when you can get feedback on what other people are doing, what they did that was good, what they did that wasn't good, you know, what you did that wasn't good, it's always a plus because you just don't get
right. I don't know if I'm going to tell you what I did that didn't work or not. I don't know. The cold calling didn't work, so I wouldn't recommend that. It is a somewhat isolated industry, I would say. You know, my father-in-law, who does it up in, like I said, in Fairfax, he uses a completely different software, completely different process. I mean, I'm surprised he's not still using a clipboard, to be honest with you. I hope he doesn't see this, but I mean, he was doing it way back when it was a clipboard and you ripped off a piece of paper and handed it.
Within the last 12 months, I did an inspection where there was an inspection already done on the house, and it was the press hard 3 copies.
Oh my gosh!
Checklist.
Really?
Yeah, it was. The agent had a copy of it.
Then the $149 home inspection.
Yeah.
It's I've never seen that before. Not since I've started in the industry, but he definitely remembers doing that. And hey, we've come a long way. And I mean, he's still using the digital camera and doing all that stuff. And he's got his process down. I just don't think that it would take me 7 hours to inspect a 2,000 square footer with his stuff the way he does it. So, but he's got it down. But it is, you know, you never really know what anybody else is doing until somebody else tells you. You know, somebody. You see him at the store or something, and they're like, "Hey, you know, this guy's doing this. Why not do that?" You know, the whole walkthrough thing. You know, he was doing them up in Fairfax, and right when I started the company, he said, "You know, why don't you come up and get back in the groove a little bit? You can do the outlets and windows and run the plumbing, and I'll look at all the big mechanicals and everything." And we did one walkthrough, and I'd never heard of him before, and you know, he was like, "Yeah, it's usually about an hour, if that. Sometimes they can't even get an hour." And you know, you're just making sure you can tell them at the end of the walkthrough that their house isn't going to tip over when they're at work, you know. And that was about it. And I was like, you know, that's probably something that could work during this in this crazy market. And so I started offering them down here. And next thing I know, you know, my old boss is doing them, everybody's doing them. I was like,
everybody's doing them.
I don't know if I brought them down here or if somebody else did. But
yeah, from my understanding, you know, DC has always been that kind of market.
Yep.
Where, you know, because I, you know, follow different inspectors on Facebook, and they're like, yeah, it's not uncommon to see four home inspectors at the same house just passing each other, you know, because it's always a shortage of houses and it's always competitive, and you know, COVID just made it that much worse, but it's always been that way. To where here it was, you know, I remember when you started seeing other areas start to offer it. And then, you know, somebody would bring it up in a mastermind group or whatever, and it was like, you know, pitchforks and torches.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Like how we like just another rabbit hole, like cost estimates.
Yeah.
Somebody said we need to stop doing it. Somebody said, well, what would we do then?
Yeah, exactly.
The same thing the rest of the country does,
Right.
But yeah, so and then it just kind of started taking off, the walkthroughs, and there's still a lot of, I don't know if you knew, but DPOR, or the board, ruled on it about a year ago now, last August. It went before the board. From my understanding, it was brought to them through a complaint.
Really?
I don't know if a realtor complained. I don't know if a home inspector who didn't like them complained, because there's a lot of home inspectors that don't like them. And I understand it.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, I would much rather do it. I tell realtors all the time, I was like, yeah, I hate them.
Yep.
We'll do them.
I say
and
the
I'll
same
show
thing.
up with a smile on my face and bells on.
I'll give them what they're paying for.
Yeah, but it's just because, nobody knows what we do as a home inspector to begin with.
Right.
You really don't know what we do for a walkthrough.
Exactly.
So
without a standard, or at least some semblance of a standard, it is kind of tough to, kind of nail down, set realistic expectations, and then also be able to live up to those in a short time frame. Whereas the traditional home inspection is obviously not on a time crunch.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
I was saying to a couple of the agents that are kind of closer with people I might hang out and have a beer with, that once the market kind of levels itself off, I don't know if I'm really gonna like offering them anymore, because it's not like it's something that really does benefit anybody in a market that's a traditional market.
It doesn't.
It
doesn't. I don't think it does.
Right.
I think if you have an opportunity to get a full home inspection,
absolutely
get a full home inspection.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, what the board basically said was, we can't call them an inspection, and we can't do a written report.
Right.
As soon as you do one of those two things, it becomes a home inspection.
Sure.
So, and that goes to, I've had people call, can you just check the major stuff? Well, not for an inspection. Right. Because it's pretty all or nothing in Virginia, from my understanding.
That's how I understand it as well.
You close on a house, or 6 months, or you live there for 10 years, or you're getting ready to list it, then yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's probably still not okay by the legal definitions,
sure.
But for sure in a real estate transaction, like if we are writing a report, we have to meet the minimum standards.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
And just checking the plumbing and the crawl space isn't
doesn't
unless you just don't want to report,
right.
which cool, it saves me time,
exactly.
easy money.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I mean, that was the benefit of that. I'll come out for whatever money I charge and go home and not have to do any reports. Yep.
I'm done at that point.
That's right.
I have to sit down for a couple hours.
But it does, because it's always, the last 6 months they've gotten better at planning out their weekends, but in the beginning it was, hey, we're going to see a house in an hour. Can you be there?
Yeah. I can't tell you how many calls I got.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've already had another house. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. But it just goes to show, as we move into this new old market, new market because it's different than the last 2 years, but old because it's hopefully going to be more of a traditional real estate market. We've said in other venues that not everybody's going to make it, because the productions or the opportunity is going to drop off. But the companies that have the ability to pivot, offering walkthroughs, as much as I don't want to do it, it was a business decision and not a personal decision, because it's what the industry in our area dictated it needed to be.
Correct.
So if I needed to pay bills and keep some of those relationships, because as you know, realtor I work with for 6 years, and they want to do walkthroughs now, and I don't do walkthroughs. Where they're just going to say, "Oh, okay,
fine,
we just won't do them.
We won't do the walkthroughs."
No, they're
they're going to find somebody else to come in and do it.
Yeah. So and then just like any other relationship, that's how it starts. So you got to be able to do that. Yep. And I think a lot of these guys that's been around for a while that refuse to do them, that seeing drops in their businesses. Mm-hmm. That might be a good reason why.
I think so.
Because their agents found somebody else willing to do something that they didn't offer.
Right.
And you start forming those relationships, and now you're forgotten.
exactly.
It doesn't take long to be forgotten.
Not in this industry.
Not in this industry.
Not at all.
What's some things you found that worked really well when you started marketing and visiting offices and?
Really just trying to put a face and a kind of a personality, if you will, to the company. Because I'm, at this point I'm still a sole member LLC, with playing with the thought of when the time's right, maybe hiring an assistant or something like that, or hiring my wife to answer phone calls.
You want to buy a home inspection company?
Not right now. No.
Okay.
maybe in a few years.
I got one for sale.
I'll give you a call in about 2025.
Okay.
I said to my wife when we were really playing with the idea of doing this is probably around May, June of 2020, right before I left the foundation repair company. We were really talking about it, and my goal was to really grow as organically as humanly possible. I already had a good base. People knew who I was. My name was already out there, so I didn't have to do that. But for me, it was really, not blowing people's phones up and getting in their face and being obnoxious. It was more of a, hey, one touch every week or a week and a half. Hey, just remind you, I'm still here. I'm not gonna call you every single day, but I'm still here. And then once given that opportunity, just using getting everything you can out of it, because if you do that, the word of mouth and referral part of that is really what I wanted to focus on with other online and other maybe mailing or setting up some literature in an office somewhere. Could be less of it, but what I've had the most success with is really just making sure that I'm doing what I'm saying I'm going to do, treating people right, and usually that'll lead to more inspections.
It's a sad standard, because I got asked once before, how did I get so busy so quick? And I said, I just answered the phone when it rang.
Yeah, exactly. Phone rings, pick it up.
Yeah, and you show up when you're supposed to and do what you're supposed to do without, bringing a nuclear warhead with you.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Yep.
And it's a low standard. But obviously as you move along and you get busier, more successful, whatever, then you gotta start tweaking some processes and whatnot. Because I found myself when it was just me, well, now what I do, because I get 7 phone calls during an inspection,
right?
And half of those, if you don't answer, they're calling somebody else, whatnot. Right. So you gotta start planning ahead,
absolutely,
what you're going to do to keep that business coming in. And whatnot.
Yeah, I the goal is to not let it plateau. I feel like that's, you get into, I'm almost to year 3 now, starting year 3, almost end of year 2, is how to, we were able to build something pretty decent, and how do we keep the growth coming in, not just let it plateau out, because we have been busy, but it hasn't been as a full 6-day week,
right?
And yet, but we're getting closer and closer, and it's how do we just nail that down, and how do we get those maybe a few more higher volume folks in there, and really trying to nail that down. I would say is probably our next step is maybe over the fall winter when it does start to slow down, and maybe put a solid marketing plan together or something along those lines. So that's kind of where we're headed next. I've been busy during the summer, and so I'll sweat and work hard in the summer, and we can worry about the other side during the winter time.
That's right.
When we get to go on vacations and stuff.
The beach is a lovely place to visit in November.
Yeah, exactly. I took a week off last month, in June for a beach trip. And wouldn't you know it, my phone never stopped ringing that week. Yeah. And I'm like, man, this could have been a good week for me. But I'd much rather be sitting in North Carolina than under a house. No offense to anybody who needed a home inspection, but the beach is more comfortable than a crawl space. So in every aspect of it.
Without a doubt.
Yep.
So what's been some of the challenges you've encountered coming back in, starting back up?
Some of the challenges, I guess, would be, the there's I call them toys. A lot of toys I want as far as tools go.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get this, this camera, or this, nice flashlight or something like that. I never really pulled the trigger on it. And I really want to start to be able to offer some ancillaries, as far, maybe like a chimney inspection or a sewer scope or something like that. I'm not doing those right now. I'm currently just doing just the property inspection. Yeah. So really just making sure that I'm keeping my ducks in a row. Paperwork. This was my first full year of business filing taxes, and I was like, holy cow, how many different questions can they ask you? I've never done it, and I told my wife, I was like, I think we'll probably hire someone to do it. Here's my folders, and here's all my stuff. Yeah. You do it for me this year, because that took way too long.
Yeah, we have an accountant we meet quarterly with, and when I was just me, QuickBooks self-employed, super easy. Yep. And then when we merged when I hired Gordon. And then definitely when we merged, I had to switch to QuickBooks, I guess online is what it is. And a lot more buttons. Oh, yeah. Met with the accountant yesterday and said, hey, man, I need somebody to fix my QuickBooks. they're so far. Right. I not even close to where like payroll goes out, all that stuff. But like the actual numbers are so far off. Right. I don't know the chart of accounts, all that stuff. He says, just send me your bank statements. Yep. It's okay. Yeah.
You have them. That's what we're paying you for. Yeah. Yeah. But I would say the biggest challenge, because like I said earlier, I was comfortable with the interaction, but whether it be between the agent and me or the client and myself, and the inspection reporting process, I already knew what software we wanted to use, how I was going to set up my reports. Mm-hmm. I only know one way to do it. Yeah. And that's the way I'm going to do it. And so I would say that I wasn't anticipating as many just little silly headaches that pop up, on a daily basis. They say if something can go wrong, it will. I don't like to think like that, but at the same time, you have to be prepared for any of that. And that I would say that the behind the scenes stuff that nobody sees was probably the biggest challenge for me. Was able to nail down certain things that I hadn't even thought about when we launched. And so I'd say that was probably the biggest challenge for me. It's just the business side of things, because I've never done it before. So learn as you go.
Yeah. And sometimes those little things, or that business, making those business decisions means, sometimes you got to eat some things you don't want to eat. Yep. You get that phone call, whether it's from a client or from an agent, not happy about something, even though it's, whatever. Yeah, exactly. And, all right, well, I'll do this to make it right. Didn't do anything wrong. Yeah.
But I gotta make it right somehow.
Yeah, gotta make it right. So, which is always fun. Yep. What's been your interactions with, just agents in general? Like how we talked about how getting in front of them and things like that, but are you doing one-on-ones with them?
With a few folks I am. A lot of the people who I've reached out to over, whether it be Facebook or just through a phone call or text message, I've been trying to get in front of them, but as well as I know that they're always doing something and always busy.
They don't answer their phones?
No. Sometimes. Most of the time. All the time.
That's right.
But the interactions have been good, and it's kind of, I've always told people that I've either trained when I was with the old company or the guy I'm kind of working with now, there's a lot of things that you can say at an inspection that make their the hair on their neck stand up or something like that. Oh, you shouldn't have said that. Or, there's ways to say something without saying something that sounds terrible. And so I guess most of my interactions do really come at the inspection, and most of them are always going to be with a client present for the most part. And so it's always trying to walk that line that's, hey, this is a problem, this is an issue, needs to be fixed, but it's not the end of the world. Everything can be fixed, it's just, and so I always tell people I train, it's, have some cliches ready, like the realtors are going to get sick of hearing them because you're going to say them over and over again, but the clients really like it. I like the old houses, if I look this good when I'm 140 years old, I'll be real happy.
That's right.
Everybody's like, oh man, I really like that.
Yeah.
Well, your basement floods every time it rains, but it still looks really good for 140 years old, and it's still going to be in the report. And we still talked about it in person but everything can be fixed kind of thing. And those interactions turn into to more inspections and referrals. And so that's kind of how I.
Yeah. And I'm sure you got like a little spiel that you say. Right.
Oh, the driveway speech. At least the one at the beginning. Here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, and I got agents now that while I'm doing the inspection, they're basically saying it for me.
They're mouthing it for you.
So when I get there, like, we've already covered all that. Let's move on. Like, all right, cool. Yeah.
This guy does, and to that point, it is kind of reading the client too about how they're. What type of personality they are. You get a high D type personality.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit there and bore them with my hot air. I'm going to say, hey, let's get busy. Let's get ready to go and let's get to work. And I think that's where a lot of guys maybe run into some issues is they want to get out there and they want to flex their inspector muscle and prove something every time they go out. And some clients that it's really abrasive, even to a lot of the agents too. And so it's really about just knowing that each appointment's different. It's not cookie cutter. Every house is different, and you can never really let your guard down, because the minute you do that, something's gonna jump up and bite you for sure. So
we speaking of that, like just dealing with get that inspection that comes in, and the agent's like, all right, they're really nitpicky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So they're really worried and nitpicky.
Yep.
Right. Well, why'd you write up so much stuff? Well, because you told me that's the kind of person they are. I don't want those phone calls.
You said that they were nitpicky. You can have those calls.
Yeah, I don't want those phone calls afterwards. So for agents that are listening, don't tell the home inspector that your clients are nitpicky, because we're going to write up more stuff.
Yeah, just let us do our thing. But my favorite is hey, we've seen 12 houses. We really need this one to go well.
Yeah.
Wink, wink. I'm like, no, that's not how this works.
No,
I'm gonna do the same
is what the house is.
Yeah, I tell people all the time. I don't write the report the house does. I just translate it into English. I'm just there to observe, report, and recommend. That's it. And that's once that expectation is set, then it's fun after that. But it's getting to that point is sometimes cumbersome.
It can be, and I get it. But that's why I tell clients, this is why we get paid now, not at closing.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So there's no questions about it. And, I had an agent say it a couple weeks ago. I did a class with them, and they said it perfectly. They said, we may seem friendly, but I'm not risking my license for him.
Exactly.
And vice versa for one deal.
Exactly.
For me to lose a license over one deal and to help a deal go through, it doesn't pay my bills next month or the month after, month after, Nope. So setting those expectations is important, and definitely work with you in certain areas as far as presentation goes.
Sure.
But the issues are what they are.
Exactly. And there's no sugarcoating it.
Yeah.
You can try as much as you want, but
and hopefully as we shift back into a more normal market, then sellers are going to put a little bit more effort into preparing their homes. And
I did a re-inspection the other day.
Yeah.
Somebody actually got to request repairs, and I got to go make sure they did them, and they did it, which was amazing, because a lot of times I show up and they weren't expecting me to come back out, and they never did anything.
Yeah.
So, but I did a re-inspection the other day, and it was the first one I'd done in a while. I was like, man, this.
So weird.
What do I need the repair addendum. That's what I need. I haven't gotten that yet. So that was fun to actually be able to go confirm that it was
that nothing was done.
Exactly. Well, they did a pretty good job. They did.
Nice.
They did most of it, which I was happy to say. And I hate when they do the re-inspections on closing day, because I'm like, they're headed to the table, and I'm like, but they said they would do that, and they didn't. So that's up to you guys. I'm just gonna leave.
I always get that question. What do we do now? I don't know.
I'm not qualified to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't have those options for you.
Right, exactly.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have any final thoughts? Anything you want to share? Any words of wisdom?
Don't waive the home inspection.
Ever. Don't waive the home inspection.
I might be a little biased. Sidney might be a little biased, but I would always advise a home inspection. And if you've been in your house for a while and you haven't had it inspected, call one of us and we'll come out and inspect it for you. I would say that's my shameless plug right there. I don't know, but no, I'm excited at the state of the industry. It seems like the inspections are really going to pick up and start coming back, and we'll be able to start doing what we like to do again. And Richmond market's always going to be good. It's a nice place to live, nice place to raise a family, and you know, I don't really plan on ever doing anything else. So be here for a little while and have some fun doing it. So I appreciate you having me on, and I've enjoyed the heck out of this for sure. So
I appreciate you coming on, man. I thought it was fun. I'll have to do this again.
Yeah, I would enjoy it.
All right, man.
All right, Sidney.